wait till you hit yard sale season again.
Go to the comments if you can, let people know what's going on.
Buy all the cheap candles that you can find. You melt them down to the crock pot.
I'll go down and talk.
Then you take a cup of lamp oil, kerosene, and you dump it in there and mix it up really good. And throw a bunch of handfuls of those dental dams in there and scoop them out. Put them on a piece of foil, let them dry. Now you got unlimited fire starters. They'll burn for 5 to 7 minutes at a time. They float. Doesn't matter what the weather is. You can hit it with a ferro rod. You can hit it with a lighter. It's going to burn. It'll give you a 5 to 7 minute burn time by itself. So that's really cool. So why wouldn't you do that all the time, right? So that's the fire kit. Then of course you have cordage. This is how we're going to hang our shelters, make certain repairs, make traps, different things. I like 2 types of cordage. I have paracord and I have bank line, tarred bank line. Some of you may call it trot line in the catfish game. So I like tarred. You can get a 1 pound roll of this for about $15,
Thank you for
$18.
trying.
When you tie a knot, that knot is not coming undone easily. So I prefer this, and it can get soaking wet and not have extra weight.
Which one now, bro?
Versus
About 200
paracord, if this gets
contacts.
wet,
Mine?
it weighs more, it doesn't dry fast. It's kind of
270.
in blood
Yeah.
at times. So I don't like it as much, but I use it for my
Oh,
show.
was it on?
This is when you're looking at a shelter in an emergency, the clothing on your back is your best form of shelter, number 1. But number 2, this poncho opens up into a 5x7 tarp. And then I can simply spread it out. Okay. So that gives me rain coverage. And then I have a secondary tarp right here. This is nothing more than a standard tarp, again, a 5x7 tarp. Combined,
When you need me,
It's
holler. I'm
already
gonna go back down there.
in
Yeah.
your
Okay. You got it.
12, 13 ounces.
Try and figure it out. I don't know.
So I have something to lay on, something to
I'm
lay
sure it's
under,
just a.
but I would like something to lay in,
Something that's there,
or I would like some type of mattress. So I have to battle conduction, because if you lay on the ground, the earth sucks heat away from your body, you get cold all night, and it's a struggle. Most times of the year, you want at least 4 inches of compressed material between you and the ground to battle conduction, especially this time of year, starting to get colder at night, 4 inches minimum. So if you hold out your arm, think wrist, elbow, and armpit. So most of the year, you can get away with wrist deep. The cooler parts of the year, elbow deep, and then armpit deep in the coldest part of the year. So when you put that on the ground, that's how thick the insulation needs to be underneath you. Most of us are too lazy to do that because it requires a lot of effort. I'm too lazy to do that most of the time, I'll be honest. And I suffer every time, right, boys? That's when you're heating rocks up in the fire and you're hugging them all night trying to stay warm. And it's terrible. But if you do it correctly, we've gone to northern Minnesota in January and we've done this stuff in 35 below zero kind of weather. That was not fun because even your boots freeze, you know. But that said, these simplistic items work there all the same way they work here. It's insulation and little bitty things that change, and that's about it. So that's my shelter kit, my cordage, that's my fire kit. And the thing I'm going to lay on is this. This is a tube, basically a big bag. About 17 inches wide by 50 or so inches long, and it has paracord on both ends. So it is the width it is because it will cover me from my head, from my shoulder to shoulder, down past my butt, so it keeps my core warm. And if I stuff that full of grass and debris or leaves, I can make a mattress. little kid or Daniel that's thin, I might be able to squeeze into this thing. But most of us wouldn't be able to pull that one off. But we can use it for a rain hood as well, because when we sleep, we lose a lot of heat through our head. So throwing this on, you can put it on off that whole tube on and pull it back up, and now you have a rain hood that will also keep you warm at night. So if I put that on and just got it next to a fire, I'll be able to endure the night pretty well. And then this is also my improvised tourniquet. It's my collection bag. I use this for all sorts of crazy things. And it's also a signal device. If I do want rescue or do want somebody to find me, I flip it inside out. It's orange. And then if I want to make a backpack out of this, grab it in the middle, twist it a couple times, or tie a knot in it, and now it's a bucket or a bag, and I can make a pack frame and attach that. So that's what I would lay on. 90% of the time in a survival class, we use a 55-gallon drum liner for this same purpose. So we make sleeping bags, we do all the same stuff with that. Instead of that, let's have drum liners, so just want to grab that. Water filtration is important. More so than food, especially in the short-term game. This is the water filter that I prefer. I've used this for years since they came out and hit the market. This is called the Grail water filter. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. They're very expensive. They're $90. But when you use this, it's going to filter 6 gallons of water, and all you have to do is press it. So I'll kind of show you how it works. Three total parts. This is the filter. You see that big black thing at the bottom? That's the actual filter cartridge. This is what you would collect your water in from your water source. Collect your water. Then you're going to put the lid back on after you got that. So your lid goes on here, and you have to open the threads of the cap. Not all the way. And then, once you got your water in there, you just press. It takes about 8 to 10 seconds when you got actual water in there. And then, you just take the cap off and drink. I've had friends use this overseas, all around the world. That's all they've used in all sorts of water. Never had a bit of problem. I've used it all over most of the country in all sorts of water. Never had a bit of problem. The issue you will run into is if the water is really silty or really abnormally dirty or has something like that. So you need to pre-filter the water. And that's when I have these devices. Simple bandana, that'll do the trick. Or we make a canvas bag. Of course we make a canvas bag for this. So we make a canvas bag, and then we filter the water before I put it into my device. That extends the life of my filter exponentially. It goes a long time. They make 2 sizes, so if you don't like the 24-ounce size, you can get a 16-ounce size. It works the exact same way, does the exact same amount of water, and it's wonderful. And then they make a steel cup that fits these as well, so you can still boil water. Let's say you break your filter or it froze on you overnight. If it freezes on you, the water filter's no good anymore. It's not going to do anything for you, so you're going to have to go back to boiling, but you still have at least 2 vessels of water. Then, of course, you can get a Sawyer water filter. These are fantastic as well. The price point is much more inviting. I get these on sale. What do we get them for at the discount store? $7 sometimes. You can get them for $10 or $20. You know, they make a squeeze version and an inline filter version. You can connect this to a 2-liter bottle or a pop bottle and just squeeze it and suck it through. They're awesome. And I highly recommend these. I usually carry both. So this is always my backup. That's always my go-to because it's so much faster and easier. But again, if I was in a bug out scenario or a quick survival scenario, that's my go-to. I've used that running through town in different places. It looks inconspicuous. It looks like any other water bottle. And I'm not busting out any kind of specialized equipment where I look a little weird when I'm doing it. Folding saw. Vital. Gotta have a folding saw. Okay? You don't want to use your knife to chop down or process firewood at night if you have to stay overnight. A saw is going to make your life easier for making contraptions, traps, things of that nature. My first aid kit, you can laugh. You'd be amazed at how many things are stuffed into this. I guess I'll show you.
Do you have
So this
Jay's
is
phone
actually a
number?
trauma
If you
kit,
could text Jay
made a
maybe and see
trauma
if he
kit
knows
that I've thrown
anything.
together.
Okay.
I don't have J's.
This is 12 feet of
It's on my
gauze
old
for
phone.
wound packing. Of course, I have the typical antiseptic towelettes, the Band-Aids, blister covers.
The audio is
4x4s,
going through
standard size
Right,
bandages.
the A10.
I have salve. I'm a big
It's
believer
just
in
nothing
healing
else
salves, things like that. I've used them really effectively over the years. And we're big on antiquing and hitting the junk stores. And you see how thin this old ointment canister is? I mean, that's a couple quarters stacked up. So I just picked one of those up and packed it with fresh salve. If I get bites, bee
But it's not
stings,
going from here
shallow
to here.
cuts,
Right.
put a yarrow plantain salve on it, solves the issue every time. So
Because
really
it's showing
simple.
up from the console to the
So
the
all
A10.
that
but from
fits
here
the
to
1984
there,
edition of the
it's not
Band-Aid
wanting to
plastic
If
pick
you
up.
pull that out,
bandage container. So
What
maybe
happens?
$2 in the local junk store probably. But anyway, that's just what I carry. If you want to carry a standard first aid kit, which I do have in the bigger bag, again, this is I got to get home quick bag. I'm not expecting any major injuries, but there may be some cuts, boo-boos, things like that I do need to contend with as I move. I do carry work gloves. I rarely use them, but I carry it because there may be a time where I get into something or have to deal with something where I just don't want to handle it without gloves. So I do carry gloves with me. I carry a multi-tool. So I always recommend a multi-tool or a Swiss Army knife. I have a Swiss Army knife with a spare ferro rod on it.
They're
So
saying.
my Swiss Army knife has a saw blade, 2 cutting tools on it, so 2 cutting edges. It also has a fork and then the standard can opener.
that's what I'm saying. Well, you got one camera set for lyrics and one camera set. That's not it. So
Because if I need
No, because you can transition with the auto button.
because of the type of gear I carry.
yeah.
So, one or the other's fine. I carry just enough food to last me 2 days. Now, is this what I want to eat over 2 days? No. This provides energy. That's it. So I just looked at it. It gives me protein at night, carbs in the morning. So I would eat one of these in the morning on the first day. That night, around the campfire, I'm eating all this chicken.
I don't
I'm
even know
drinking
what
all
to
the
Google,
yucky, greasy
you know.
water that's in the pouch because it's giving me the calories I need. The next morning when I wake up, I carb up again. Why do I eat carbs in the morning and meat at night? Do you know that's actually a biblical concept? That's what they did in the Exodus. He said he gave them quail in the evening, manna in the morning. Carbs in the morning, meat at night. Because you got to carb up the fuel, get your energy for the day, and at nighttime you're ready to rest, heal your muscles, or recuperate. That's what protein does for you. So we eat our heavier meal at nighttime. So that's the mentality. It is enough, but I'm obviously not missing many meals. This is enough to get me home in a short-term survival situation. Again, I said the duct tape, which I mentioned before. This is a fire starter, bandages, etc. How do you make fire with this? Tear it apart, increase the surface area. That's the magic word we say. Increase surface area. It's a chore. You either love this fire skill or you hate this fire skill. Keep peeling off little sections of tape until you build a big bundle of tape material. Then you can ignite it with your ferro rod. That's what you do in class. Hit it with a ferro rod, or just take your lighter and light it up. Again, 5 to 7 minute burn time. Last, we talk knives. So again, this is roughly my 10, 12-piece survival kit. Put in there, everything from this bag would be in the bigger bug-out bag. So this, how far are most of us from our house if we go to work? The national average is 17 miles, by the way. That's the average daily commute.
I'm
If
sorry.
we go into
Once
town,
again,
it's
mess up your
30
mind.
miles from us.
No, it's all right. I'm
A
just,
lot of you live here, if you're going to
usually
town,
I can figure it out.
it's 30 miles, right? What if something so bad happened
I
that
just
you
don't
had
know
no
what to think.
choice but to walk
They
back
just read
home
what I told
that
them.
30 miles?
I mean, I can
Some of
turn
us,
the screen around
could we
and
do
point
it?
it
Yeah.
with
Do
the
we want
FaceTime
to?
on it.
Absolutely not.
and work on
I've
it
done
tomorrow
this.
morning first
Not
thing.
30, I've done 20.
Can we do that?
You know what?
I hate it. I'll tell you straight up. We did it with a
Yeah,
45-pound backpack full of
Can
just
you pull
survival
up
gear.
the live
We
stream?
walked
and I
20
can see
miles
from your
total.
phone?
He said it could be a bad faulty cord.
Maybe 5-ish hours.
That's-
You know, there was a big
yeah.
group of us, so we were
probably
playing
this right
scavenger
here.
hunt in town, so we went and did an urban survival thing. They had to get all
Where's
the
the
gear
unit
and
of the
equipment
cord?
they needed in town, in Emmons, Kentucky, and then we walked them back to our farm. And we just walked on the road. We didn't cut across farms or
You
anything.
see that?
That's a safety hazard, number one.
See how it's
But in
split?
a real survival
So
situation,
that's
you
a
don't want to walk on the
USB
road either.
to
Right? So, for this, because it's a class, we walked on the road 20 miles, and at the end of that, I don't know of many of the people that could have got up and did it again the next day. It was rough. Feet are bleeding, blisters are everywhere, bloody toes. It was rough. And we were dressed and trained and ready for it, most of them. So, imagine the Exodus journey, doing that day by day by day until they get to the mountain. No wonder they complain. We were complaining just walking home. But there's a lot of realities that we have to be prepared for. Not all of us are called to do that, but some of us absolutely are called to do that. And we have to see what the Lord's speaking to us individually. Brings me back to the knives. A knife is what enables you to rest in the wilderness. Okay? So if you have a good knife skills, it's really all you have to have. If I had just a knife, I can make a shelter, I can make a fire. What more do I need for that one night? Not much else. The next morning, I could burn out a bowl with the fire I made, thanks to my knife, help my knife, because I'm not good
USB to
at
USB-C.
all that stuff doing that.
Here's a different dangle.
But if I have that knife, it gives me the ability to rest.
So this is the bad
relax,
cord, right?
build everything I need.
I think so.
Me, knife,
Okay, so we just gotta get.
if I had it the way
Don't have a bigger arm, sorry.
I got one in my pocket. This is a fighting knife. Okay? I'm gonna stab you if I have to. This is the only reason this knife is here, for fighting. It's not for cutting the box open or anything else.
ATEM's not even picking up now.
Does everybody need one of those? You don't know how to use it, you do not need one of those. Jason has 40 years of experience using these. So that's why I choose to carry that. Next, this is my chore knife for cutting my boxes and my packages and carving on the sticks or prepping my food around the fire, things like that. So that's just a small neck knife. 3-inch blade, 3.5, you're set. You can do 90% of your daily routine just with this little thing. You really don't need nothing else. It'll straighten my ferro rod, it's got a 90-degree spine on the back. On my cool fat wood, I can straighten it up, get my tinder off my trees. That's my go-to. Now, if I gotta
Where's that
get
other
to work,
cord at?
process firewood, again, all I've got, this kit, small, really a knife. Then I'm gonna want a bigger knife,
I'm sorry.
4.5 to 6-inch blade, 6-inch being the max. 4.5, 5-inch blade is all I want. One at least an 1/8-inch thick, full tang. So from top to bottom, it's one piece of steel. I prefer carbon steel, but it rusts. So you gotta oil it, take care of it all the time. The reason I like carbon steel is because I can sharpen it on rock. I can't do that with stainless steel that won't last. And the new steels, if you get into the $300, $400, $500 range of a really cool knife, it's made of a super steel. You'll never sharpen that in the field. You have to have a sharpening device to sharpen it. there's drawbacks. This, I pick up any rock and I will get it sharp. So that's why I like this. I like a natural handle, so antler or wood, because it's warmer in my hand. Or I get a micarta, which is a fiberglass resin type material, and that is also warm in my hand and it does not break. So I choose those. I stay away from the natural. But the knife will enable me to process wood. If I'm going to make a serious shelter, because it's winter time and I really need the protection and coverage, I want to be able to process stuff as thick as my wrist. I have a big wrist. So I need a knife capable of cutting tree material down to support my body weight. So if you look at your wrist, that's about how big something needs to be to support your body weight if you're laying on top. So that's why I want the knife capable of doing that. So all of that would be transferred into this, which we would look at as a bug out bag. Again, yard sale find, $2 for this backpack. You can spend hundreds of dollars on a backpack, or just go get one from your childhood like I did and find it at a yard sale that is still functional, and you're good to go. And the top bag, you're going to see a lot of redundancies, a lot of the same stuff. But in the very top, I have navigation stuff. So the compass, notebook. I also have specialized markers. These are made by Sharpie. You can pick them up at a hardware store, Lowe's, somewhere like that. They work on greasy and wet surfaces. So if I have people I'm trying to get to, or I'm supposed to meet up with people, I can mark on certain things, cars, vehicles, trees, or whatever, and it's not going to run off. And even if it's wet or greasy, it'll still make the mark. So I'm leaving a trail for my friends if I need to, or whatever it goes for. So I have all my writing instruments, things like that. That's in here. A map would also go in there. A simple road map is enough. Okay. Most of us understand how to look at road
From the
map.
library at West Africa says the audio is good,
It's
so
very hard to get lost
I think that's pretty cool.
nowadays, but if you're cutting across everybody's farms, you'll find out real quick you can get lost real easy, even if you have a good sense of direction. Then you don't know the terrain.
I don't know if we have another HDMI cord. Probably not.
Keep going. Now we get the bigger first aid kit. More food. There's more food in the bag. Because now, I got home. The danger is so serious, I can't stay home. Here's the thing. The Bible, and we're going to get into that. Be looking better? Get close.
We got audio, so people can hear it. We got someone
Okay.
from West Africa saying the audio's good, so we're
praise
good.
God.
We're still working on video, so
Okay. So, this is a biblical concept of a bug out. So I'm going to back up for a second since we do have solid audio. So, what was the first thing that God did to Adam and Eve? The first thing that happened. Made them clothing. Amen. A+. Good job, class. Made them clothing of animal skins. Everybody's right. That word make is the Hebrew word asah, which means he fully transmitted the concept, teaching, or idea. So he sat with them and taught them how to make clothing of animal skins. Well, that sounds a lot different than what most of us visualize. Well, God made them clothing, bless God. He just went over to the deer and went, there's a pair of breeches for Adam. Not quite how it worked. He sat with them and taught them what goes into that teaching. What animals are good for clothing? How do you harvest the animal? How do you process the animal?
He said if you can call him, he can walk you through it.
Take the animal apart.
Jay?
How do you make use of the hide to have clothing? How do you flint that? Because how are you cutting anything? How are you sewing anything? So either that was all supernatural and learned into the span of a moment, or, as the verbiage states in Hebrew, he sat and taught them. So this is basically the pre-incarnate Jesus walking in the cool of the day in the garden. Adam, where's my friend? We see the story play out, and then he sits with them
Thank you, man.
and teaches them, well, you can't stay here.
I'm
You
sorry.
committed a sin that has now separated you from my presence. You can't be in my presence. But let me show you how to survive apart from my presence. So we first taught them how to survive apart from his presence. Where everything was provided for, now they have to endure this hardship. But he prepared them for the hardship before they endured the hardship. So he taught them how to survive. We see this theme play out through the entirety of the Bible. The first 2 chapters of Genesis are also the last 2 chapters of Revelation. Anybody figure that one out yet? We start in the garden, we're going back to a garden. There's a lot, all the parallels are the same in the first 2 chapters and the last 2 chapters. Interesting. Thomas Aquinas said that, I'm going to really abbreviate this. Thomas Aquinas was a 13th century theologian. This concept is called exodus et reditus. It's the law of exit and return. The way in which you depart from God is the way in which you enter back into God's presence. So if we left God's presence, learning survival skills to endure away, we'll enter back into his presence through the same pathway of doing survival skills before he allows us back into his presence. So there is a reason that we're seeing
So
such
the HDMI, put it on 3 and 4.
20 years of people interested in survival skills. Everybody hears, God speaks,
You can go
I believe
to settings.
everybody hears it, but only those that are his hear his voice and understand what to do with that knowledge. Other people that don't know him but still hear this clarion call interpret it in their own muddled way. So they make apocalyptic movies and write apocalyptic literature. But it gets us to see what was said.
When
oh, yeah, everybody's hearing.
It's
We're all
on
the same page. We're just not
FaceTime
seeing
HD camera,
the way he wanted us to
and I
see
try and hit it on the ATEM,
He gave us 3 appointed
and
times
it just
in Scripture
it kind of
to practice
defaults
these
back to the
holidays, or
FaceTime.
Practice these skills. These are holidays, named
No.
in the Old Testament. We're all familiar with the Passover, correct? We know the story of the Passover.
It's the default iMic
We
microphone,
break this down and
the
look at it
Black
through
Magic
the
design,
eyes of
and then
what it
the
is.
microphone
It's
built
called
in.
Moed in Hebrew,
And I click
or
on
an
the
appointed time or
the
rehearsal.
ATEM,
What
and
are
it
we
goes.
rehearsing? Well, are we rehearsing the Passover? It said it's something to be done throughout all of our generations forever. In the New Testament, Jesus said, I won't drink of this cup with
I'm
you
clicking on.
until
I'm
I
in
do
the
it in my
settings,
Father's kingdom."
and I'm clicking on
We're still
camera.
going to be doing it later as well. So that shows it never passes away. But what are we rehearsing? We have an Old Testament and a New Testament example to glean information from. In the Old Testament, we have a successful bug out.
It's
Middle
a
of the night,
it's a HDMI
have gathered all
To-
together in their homes,
to a like a Android port.
midnight hour. So we have the entire nation going out. It says they
And it's
walk
right next to the
all
power
way to
cord.
Sukkot, which means temporary camp, before they stop. When you look at
Yes.
the textbooks on that, about how far was that? They said it was about
Yes.
25 to 26 miles. So they walked that far, that many people, before they took rest the first night. Then they continued. They continued.
Yes.
They get out into the wilderness. We know the story. He comes after. Now they get to the sea.
Actually, no.
The
It's
sea
a
opens, they make
it
the
goes
escape,
into.
the sea closes.
What are these called?
God save them all.
It's like
So
a.
that's a successful
Um,
bug out. They took
It's a
all they
USB,
had,
and then it's got a
danger was chasing
HDMI
them,
and
but
also
God had
something
ordained a
else.
place for them to get to, where they'd be safe. Praise God. Okay, so that's a bug out. Let's jump ahead into the New Testament. Jesus celebrated Passover. He's betrayed by one of his own at his own table. They finish the meal. And part of the Passover is they're rehearsing what was done in the Old Testament. So they go out to the wilderness, the Garden of Gethsemane in this particular case, and they go to pray, because that's how you rehearse. You go into the woods. And part of this rehearsal was you burn your leftovers, you're sitting around the fire. When you're doing it the way it's described, it's very camp-oriented. You're cleaning your house as though there's no trace, you're burning all your leftovers, you're getting out into the woods, you're going to pray and fellowship. That's really what they were doing there as well. But when the danger came, what was going on? They were praying in the garden. The guys ate too much and they started getting sleepy. They started falling asleep. He comes up and he kicks them. Hey, can't you pray with me even an hour? Come on, guys. Keep watchful. What are they watching for? Because this is a rehearsal. It's an appointed time. They did it again, the second time. And then he comes and says, oh, the hour's come, here are my accusers. We know the rest of that story as well. That is an unsuccessful time. It was an appointed time for him to do what he did, obviously. But it gives us two pictures to look at that's very interesting, and I believe it would help us later. Passover's in the
So a
spring.
system
What
setting.
are we doing in springtime? Prepping for storms. We have tornadoes around here. So we're doing our spring preparations. We're shaking off the cabin fever of winter. We're ready to get out. We're ready to get prepped a little bit more. But now it's storm season. We got a lot of things to do. We need to get our fire plans for the house in order. We got to get our preparations for severe weather in order. We got to have a plan developed for all these things in case we have to bug out. An annual cycle of practice. Okay, Passover.
Let's see.
What's next? Pentecost. 50 days later.
There's no
They carried everything they
updates.
had with them out
Yeah,
past
there's
the
no
Red Sea,
alerts.
And now they have to endure 50 days until they get to the Mount
Okay.
Sinai. What did they do? Did they complain within the first 72 hours? We're thirsty. The water's dirty. Well, God, how do you want us to clean water? Cut down a tree and throw the tree in it.